Can ChatGPT be a successful entrepreneur? It can, but only if you are a great prompt writer. In this video, I will show you how to write better prompts to get smarter, more strategic outputs from venture building. Welcome to the Gen AI Nerd channel. In this video, you will learn three important things. First, I will explain the core principles behind great prompting. Second, I will show how to add authenticity to your startup prompts. And finally, I will demonstrate a few tricks to automate prompt writing like a professional. So let's get into it. So let me briefly explain the basics of prompting. So if you want to write a good prompt, you actually have to write a prompt that consists of three essential parts. In the first part, you have to clearly explain the role that Gen AI needs to play in your prompt and also give some info on your role in the prompt. The second part is that you have to clearly define the task that you want to execute. So you have to describe the goal, what do you want to do, but it also makes sense to give a kind of step-by-step explanation of how you want ChatGPT or another generative AI tool to execute that task, and you can even provide some rules on how it should execute the task. And finally, you want to kind of stipulate what kind of output you want to expect. So you can briefly describe the kind of output you want, or you can even provide some examples of the kind of output that you want. So these are the essential basics of writing a good prompt, and now let me show that with a specific example. So here we are in ChatGPT, and I've now prepared a prompt that should allow to create a 1-minute elevator pitch about a particular pain point. And so I have defined a specific pain point, a problem that I want to solve for the startup. And now as a first step, I want to kind of pitch this pain point to stakeholders, and I need an elevator pitch for that. And so now I've prepared a prompt to help me create a first draft of this elevator pitch. And so you will see I've now defined the roles, and I really mentioned that explicitly like this. So this is how typically prompt engineers write prompt. So I have my role part where I've described what kind of role Gen AI needs to take. I also mentioned my role. Here it always makes sense to not say I'm a student or something like that, because then it will act like giving you only a kind of student type of output. So actually it's best to position yourself already like an expert or an experienced person, because then typically the output will also get better. Then you need to describe the task. So here I have asked it to create a persuasive 1-minute elevator pitch. I've given it the pain point for which I want this elevator pitch, and I have described some steps that it needs to follow. So it needs to understand the problem, highlight the stakes, and then create a transcript of the pitch. I also have given it some rules and constraints. Avoid technical details, but also focus on the pain point and not the solution. So I really want to have a pitch on the pain point. And finally, I've given some output specifications that it should meet. And then let me show you now what kind of output I have received. So I have received here now a kind of first transcript of a 1-minute pitch for this pain point. So we can see it here. It's a few lines. So indeed, this would be more or less like 1 minute, where I think we can already see that this provides quite a nice first draft of a pitch for a pain point. Now, it's nice, but it's not yet great. And I think this is a problem that we often see when you want to use ChatGPT for entrepreneurial activities. It's able to come up with something reasonable. Even now, I already gave it quite some prompting instructions, but there are still some issues. And let me maybe highlight now 3 specific issues that we can see here. First of all, it starts with the word imagine. And this is actually something you might not now realize, but it tends, if you ask to write the pitch, it tends to start with the word imagine. But imagine me as a professor when I have 50 student teams and like 45 of them start their pitch with the word imagine, because that's how ChatGPT kind of works. Then quickly, if the student team uses imagine, it will already affect their authenticity. So you want to avoid kind of these traditional ChatGPT structures. Another issue is that sometimes it has very specific kind of grammar structures that it uses. For instance, one example here is like that's not just convenient, it's risky. This is a typical kind of grammatical structure that ChatGPT loves to use, and that might affect, again, your authenticity. And overall, I think if you look at this pitch, it is quite emotional, but maybe not kind of the emotionality that we, for instance, I'm here in Germany. This might be a bit like an American sales agent on speed and not really tailored to my German audience. So also that is a kind of problem. Yeah, so we see here a number of problems that affect the authenticity. And now I want to show you how you can actually make the output of the prompt more authentic. So first thing we can do is to use what is called the scalar approach. And this is a very straightforward approach. So what will I do now here? So now I will write a follow-up prompt asking, here is a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is extremely emotional and 10 is extremely unemotional. And then I can say, please rank the output based on this scale. Yeah, so now I can press enter. And so now it will evaluate the output. And now it says this is on a 3 on the scale, so rather emotional. And maybe, for instance, for a German audience, maybe already a bit too emotional. So now I can, for instance, say, can you rewrite the pitch on a scale of 5. Now I can enter. And so now the emotionality should be a bit more less. Yeah. And indeed, if you now start looking at, for instance, the word imagine already disappeared. That's also a good thing. And I think you can see that this is a bit more rational. There are still some emotional elements, but at least we have now already been able to fine-tune my output based on the level of emotionality that I want. And that can really help to make it already more authentic. Another strategy to improve the authenticity is to use the Canvas tool. And I've now will just copy paste again my initial prompt here. And now if you go to plus, and this is even in the free account, you have here the Canvas option. And if I now press enter, it will again create for me this pitch script, but now it will go to a different user interface where I can actually quite easily start adjusting my text. And you see it already starts with imagine. That's something we don't want. So now, for instance, I could here click on plus and say, please remove the imagine start. And then it will immediately start editing the text. Now here we have one single paragraph, but if you would have more paragraphs, you can now really tailor each paragraph specifically. Here you have some additional options. So you can, if you want, add emojis. That's not very relevant here. You can do some final polishing. But also here, for instance, you can now adjust the reading level to different levels. So here, for instance, I might actually want to make it a bit higher. So let's transform it into graduate school, and then it will again adjust the text. So here in the Canvas option, you have quite some options to quickly again start fine-tuning the text to make it more authentic. So also this approach, I think, can help you to improve the authenticity of your text. So now finally, let me briefly explain you how you can automate writing sophisticated prompts, because as you saw, it might actually take some time to write a sophisticated prompt, but today there are a lot of tools available to make that easier for you. Yes, so today there are a lot of tools available to start automating the writing of prompts. And here I have developed my own tool called the Expert Prompt Generator. So this is a GPT, which you can enter by going to GPTs in your ChatGPT. And so this is a GPT that will help you to write more sophisticated prompts. So what I need to do now is actually to enter quite a basic prompt. Yeah, so here I simply have a very straightforward instruction, and then I give again the pain point that I have. And now I can simply press enter, and this GPT will now transform this basic prompt into a more sophisticated prompt. Yeah, and I will also add a link to the GPT in the YouTube description because it's publicly available, so then you can use it. So now we can take a look at what it's creating. So here it again gives the task, but now you see it actually creates for me steps, output format and rules and constraints, and even some examples. So in that way, I can now then easily copy paste the prompt and simply execute this more sophisticated prompt. So this actually allows me not to have to write this full extensive prompt, but actually create it with this kind of tools like the prompt generator. And this can really help you to very quickly start writing more sophisticated prompts for all kinds of entrepreneurship activities. Okay, so these were the things that I wanted to show you. So I hope you now have a better understanding about the basics of prompting for entrepreneurship, how you can make the output more authentic, and how you can start automating these prompts. So I hope this video was helpful, and thank you for your attention. Bye.